All right. Hey, Kathy Pham, thank you for being on the YouSchool podcast. And if you are listening to this, then you're missing out on Kathy's outfit, and I love it. Uh,
For those who are listening, I'm wearing an orange beanie, a white mock neck sweater, and a orange vest. It's not that exciting, but hey, little effort. Gotta give a little effort.
that's your brand. A little effort goes a long way.
I care a little.
Well, what I want to do is start kind of backwards and try to unpack your life. How's that sound in 15 minutes? So maybe let's start with what are you doing right now professionally? How do you describe it to folks, especially like I don't know when you go to home for Thanksgiving and you're talking to an aunt and she says, "Kathy, what are you doing these days?" How do you describe
My family doesn't ask. I don't know if they know what I'm doing.
it?
But so let's say someone else.
Yeah.
I like to say that I live and serve in the neighborhood of City Heights, San Diego, and so I am a youth worker. And what that looks like, I just try to love students well as they're my friends,
Mm.
and to help others do the same. And so whether that's volunteers and staff, and so yeah, I love and serve teenagers.
You know, it's interesting to me, and I don't want to be the narrator to your life story. So you can correct me where I'm
You
wrong.
can.
Okay. Okay.
You can, and
Thanks.
then we can make it into a movie.
This is power. Okay, so when I met you, which I don't remember how long it was, 7, 8, 10, 12, 15 years ago, somewhere in there. What I had heard about you at the time was you had made this pretty drastic shift in career from an executive leadership success business path to working in the inner city or whatever phrase you use, the hood. And I want to
Mhm.
understand really why, because this
Yeah.
conversation is about what do you stand for? And you're one of the few people that I could think of that has such clearly defined values that it's shaped everything about your life: geography, where you live, what you do professionally, your relationships, your finances. Like, so you may or may not think about it in that way, but talk about that transition you made and what you were doing from corporate to being a youth worker.
Yeah, so I to back it up, I was working in corporate. I was working for a major big box company. Um, Here's the hint: if you cut me, I will bleed target red, whatever that means. And so, so highly committed, and I think that's just how I roll with anything I'm involved in. I get really committed, and so in the middle of that, just
Hmm.
knowing am I doing something that lasts?
Hmm.
Like, who does this really help? And then I think, oh, nice questions. Put it under the rug. Put it under
Yeah.
the rug, and eventually, I'm a person of faith, and I just really sense that the God's like, hey, you're meant for something specific,
Hmm.
and that looks like giving your life away to serving young people. And I was like, that's bizarre.
Uh-huh.
But I was like, well, let's see what it looks like to like live like maybe more a life where I'm actually risking, where I'm actually having to have faith versus
Hmm.
just doing whatever I want and being my own driver of my own car. Like, what does it look like to be a passenger?
Hmm.
And so I moved to San Diego. It was just for the summer,
Huh.
and it was just to serve in the summer. And toward 2 weeks into my time here, people are like, "Hey, you're the person that we've been praying for
Hmm.
to work with the youth." And I'm like, "What?" And I would just walk away from like those comments and conversations because I
Huh.
was like, "I don't even know you. I just got here."
Yeah.
And toward the end of summer, they're like, "Hey, seriously, like consider this." And so I just went through just really trying to discern
Hmm.
like what has God been doing in my life? What are the skills and talents He's given me? And what does it look like to be faithful? And through talking with others and really just doing some real deep reflections, just like, hey, this is probably this is this seems like this is what's up. And so so I could pursue things that would maybe make me happy or just
Mhm.
really do what I really believe that I was meant to do, which is interesting because I thought about it this week. I was talking to some friends back home, and back home is Orange County.
Yeah.
And one guy, he does like landscaping stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be working on Vanessa Bryant's
Hmm.
backyard, which is
Wow.
Kobe's yeah, Kobe's wife,
Yeah.
late wife, however I
Widow. Yeah.
say that respectfully." And I was just like, "Wow." And then he was just talking about his like brother-in-law, another guy that I know. He's like, "Yeah, he does drop ship, and he's doing stuff for like Travis Scott,"
Hmm.
like just saying all these names, right? And I was
Wow.
just like, "Huh." And yeah, and like my cousin, like he was the personal chef for the Kardashians,
Oh my
and
gosh.
just like these things, and I was just like, "What?" Right?
Yeah.
And I had to pause and be like, "That's cool, right? Like that's
Yeah.
cool, and
Yeah.
that's cool for them." And but I really had to be like, "Wait, am I okay where I'm at?" And I actually I am.
Hmm.
But so sometimes it's just helpful to take stock about like what am I really about, and
Yeah.
how do these things like remind me, I guess.
Because those moments are disorienting. I mean, you just labeled three that are incredibly enticing, attractive, from, almost any angle you look at it. Those are impressive, cool things, which what happens for me when I'm not grounded, and it sounds like this week you re-grounded. When I'm not grounded, I get totally distracted. I feel bummed out. I feel like I'm off path, or who am I? And all those voices, all those whispers of,
Hmm.
you're not good enough, you don't have what it takes, you've made mistakes, you're missing out. It's like all those voices come rushing up. And I'm curious, with you working with students, what I've discovered is sometimes the path to figuring out what you stand for comes from something that you had, and you want to pass that on.
Hmm.
Like, for instance, someone
Yeah.
who had a great, powerful mentor in their life when they were young would say, "Gosh, I really want to offer that in the future to other people." And then on the flip side, sometimes what drives people is what they didn't have. And you can use that
Hmm.
same example. I didn't have a mentor and I really missed out. And therefore, I want to give this away. So I guess I'm curious, trying to set that up as a lens for you. What has it been about students for you specifically? Or has it been just kind of, I don't know, this is just seems to be something I'm interested in?
Yeah, I think when I think back on my story, so I come from a broken home, and there was I'll call it drug abuse. And as a kid, I was like, this sucks. And like if if someone were to record my life, it's like ho hum, like my life sucks.
Yeah.
But looking aside, or in addition to the hardship or to the suckiness, I also recall being surrounded by great friends,
Mm.
and a really loving church community,
Hmm.
and so who were like my mentors, and so they would open up church so I could do homework there, and they'll pick me up and drop me off, and just people really cared about me.
Yeah.
And I didn't really connect it until getting a little bit older, and I was like, oh, a lot of what I'm doing is just like part of like what redemption looks like,
Mm.
where like I really believe like God doesn't waste our pain. And so it could be like, oh yeah, like my upbringing was trash. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
Yeah.
but also there was good things, and then I myself could be involved in good things in other people's lives.
I love that. And I'm curious, now that you work with students, kids, maybe who have some similarities to your upbringing.
Mhm.
How do you help them process that while they're going through it? What do you do? Do you find yourself asking certain questions or saying certain things to them?
Yeah, I think it's just really trying to be a good friend. And so I think it starts with like earning the right to be heard. And so before I could say anything, it's like how could I just really show up for anybody, including young people, right? And so how I befriend and care for a person who's 15 is the same as someone who's 35, 55, is just like trying to ask good questions about just hey,
Mm.
so who do you live with? Um, so what's your favorite food? Just things that are I think the family one really shows what's going on in the home life, and then
Mm.
the food one is just something that's disarming. And most people like food,
Yeah.
and most people get excited, and so I try to just show that I care, and also like I think make it fun, and I'll ask questions that might be what a typical adult wouldn't ask.
Mm.
I'll just say like, "Hey, who do you think's gonna win a fight?" And I'll just
Yeah.
like pick two random kids. It's like, who would say that? Like, what are you even talking about? And so, just just try to keep them on their toes,
Yeah.
and for them to think, okay, she's whatever.
Yeah.
And so, Yeah, and so I think that, and then it's just like being along for like their pretty much like their life. That's not like because you're part of our program,
Yeah.
or if you like graduate out, that we're still friends. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so it looks like knowing what's going on. So if there's things that are hard, it's like, hey, like you're
Mm.
not alone in this. And there's things that are great, it's like celebrating those wins. And so, you know, yeah, I guess just trying to like be a homie.
Also your brand. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't wanna bum you out, but if we could chart the trajectory of your career earnings pre
Yeah.
and post the decision that you made to
Hmm.
follow your passion and follow what you sense God doing,
Yeah.
uh, I would just imagine that you've clearly missed out on some dollar bills, obviously. So what I want to ask is not what have you missed out on, but what has your life gained by reorganizing your life towards your fundamental values and your sense of what's right and who you
Hmm.
are. Like, as you look back over the last X
Hmm.
number of years, what has been built in you?
Right. Yeah. So if we talk money, I make when I so after when I was working in Orange County and when I was doing a corporate executive job, eventually I lost my job. I was on unemployment, and I made more on unemployment
Hmm.
than like my checks in Senegal for like years until maybe more recently. And so it's kind of like fascinating. I could do nothing and make more
Wow.
money than I do now.
Wow.
But I think what it's about is just like the bigger picture. And so is my bigger picture a paycheck,
Hmm.
or is my bigger picture like what is it? And for me is like to really love God and to love people. And so when I was young, I remember one of my mentors telling me like there's just like two things that last, like God and people.
Hmm.
And so if you do those things, like that's what lasts. And so I was like, wow,
Hmm.
I can do something that lasts forever. I don't really think about like what's my legacy,
Yeah.
but from time to time, I'm reminded of
Hmm.
that, and I think that really grounds me. And so I think what is really important to me is living for hope and
Hmm.
standing for what's the betterment of other people's lives. Like, what does it look like where my life hopefully makes other people's lives better? And I don't have like a metric for it, because I think then it gets a little too complicated and it's a little too checklist. But I think just
Yeah.
kind of like the overall idea is like, hey, it's just like it's about hope, and it's about making sure others around me are doing well, in a macro level. And then I think about like systemically,
Hmm.
what could that look like? Yeah.
Maybe as we wrap up, you'd play a little Mad Libs game here. When So
Sure.
I'm going to say a sentence, and you fill in the blank, whatever comes to mind. When it comes to kids,
Hmm.
in terms of what they deserve, and I know deserve might be a loaded term. You might say,
Right.
I was talking about this recently, and someone said, "I don't think anybody deserves anything," and I was like, "Hmm." And he goes, "Yeah, no one deserves." So then the other person said, "I think we all deserve everything." Like, so when I say
Hmm.
deserve, I think I
Yeah.
mean, what if things were right the way things should be.
Hmm.
What do you feel
Yeah.
like kids deserve? Every kid deserves what?
I think everyone deserves someone who believes in them. Yeah.
Why do you say that?
And so, yeah, I think because everyone, including kids, including teens, I think because they matter and they add value. And so I think, yeah, everybody deserves someone who lives or who believes in them. Quickly, a brief story. And so there's this band, they're called BTS, and they spoke at the United Nations. And it's like the third time this past September. And so James Corden went, he does this monologue, and he said something to the effect of, can't believe BTS is there. Like, why are they there? And then he says, like, oh, it's because they have the largest army, which is their fan base. They're
Mm,
called the army.
okay.
And so that's like the joke. And then he says like, I can't believe like everybody is scared of 15-year-old girls.
Huh.
And so I was like, wow. One, I think like, well, do you believe in 15-year-olds?
Hmm.
Right? Because if you do, then you realize like what they could offer,
Yeah.
right? And they wouldn't be a butt to a joke. And so I
Right.
think there's there's just something about like, hey, like everybody deserves, people to believe in them.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kathy. I think I continue to want to spend time with you because you remind me what it looks like in a real life person, how to organize your life around things that matter the most. And when I get distracted by talking and hanging out with friends and we're talking about bathroom tile or some trip, or I see someone's career success on LinkedIn and it gets disorienting, I think of you and I think of friends like you who remind me what matters most, what lasts. And I want to say thank you for that as a friend. And thank you for your work with
For
students.
sure.
Giving that as an example to them is a big deal. And the questions that you ask for, I've been around you when you ask kids questions, and you are
Hmm.
a homie and you're very disarming. And that comes with the integrity of you living a life that's integrated, and I'm impressed and thankful for it. So thanks for being on the show. And if you're listening and watching and
For sure.
want to dig into these kinds of conversations, that's where we have things like in the show notes and in this curriculum. We want every single student to be able to answer these questions. We believe they deserve the opportunity to, so they can build a truly meaningful life. So we'll be back next week with another episode.
Hmm.